Good morning, everybody, and I'd like to give you a warm welcome this morning to our Microsoft 365 Getting the Most of webinar. Some introductions just to start off, and just to give you an idea of how the webinar will run and what we'll be covering. So you've got myself, Callum, our digital marketing expert, and Tom, our Microsoft 365 partner on the webinar today. So we'll all be involved and talk you through it, help you out, and hopefully give you some really good insights into probably the lesser known areas of Microsoft 365. I'm sure some of you would have used some of these tools already previously. But in our conversations and our feedback from our customers as well, there's some elements that people definitely don't know about. So I hopefully give you some good insight. We're actually delighted. There's over 50 people actually attending today, so really do appreciate it. You're all taking time out your very busy schedules, so we do appreciate it. For those of you that haven't been on any of our webinars previously, this is actually our 4th webinar now this year. So we're trying to, again, from customer feedback, we're trying to give, more of these sort of insights and these educations to our customers and potential customers as well. So the previous webinars were Huntress and all about EDR and ITDR. We ran a Copilot webinar as well previously, and also business automation as well. So if you feel that any of those might be of interest to you at all, please drop us an email. We'll put all the contact details on the screen later on, and they'll pop up at various times as well. But do get in touch. We can point you to the resources for the additional webinars, so that would be great. Just to give you a quick overview, some of the things that we'll be covering today, we're looking at things like bookings. A lot of these you'll have as part of your Office 365 licenses, Microsoft Planner as well, OneNote, To Do, Loop, some interesting insights, and also to give you more of a flavor of how Copilot integrates with some of these tools as well. I know some of you may well be using Copilot, so and some of you that aren't as well, give you an idea of how Copilot can work with these tools. Encourage you to use the Q&A section. I know that some people like using these things, some people don't like using these things. It really doesn't matter. Whatever question that you've got, please do pop it in there. We'll try and get to it, during the webinar. We'll try and pick up on some questions, but we're also going to leave time at the end. We're expecting it to run to about 11:45, just so as you can plan your day, and then give you some time to ask more questions, and hopefully gives us time to answer your questions from 11:45 onwards. So I think that probably wraps up the start. I'm going to hand you over to Tom, who's going to run through things with you, and Callum and I will pop back on as we go through. Actually, before I do hand over to Tom, sorry, Tom, you'll have to pause there just a second. We're going to pop up we've got some polls that we'd encourage you to interact with during the webinar. And we'd like to pop up the first one just to give a flavor of who's maybe using what tool, whether using some of the tools that we're going to talk about. So I'm hoping that's going to pop up onto your screen from previous webinars. Sometimes you might have to pop into the chat window to actually see it if it's not popped up on your screen automatically. But if we can just take 30 seconds or so just to give us an answer on the poll, that would be really good, so we can see some results there before we start. I'll wait till we see something coming through before we let that poll go. All good? Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. That's great. I'm now will hand it over to Tom. So over to you, Tom.
Perfect. Thank you, Andy. Yeah, and some of you may have recognized me from the Copilot webinar if you did attend, so welcome back as well. And I really like how Andy positioned that, actually, is hopefully everybody here is a Microsoft user in one way or another. It wouldn't be a modern day Microsoft call if we didn't talk a little bit about Copilot, but we won't be talking specifically about it, more so just using the rest of Microsoft and where Copilot is getting involved. Again, appreciative of everybody putting in those responses. At least one person's using every single thing we'll talk about here today. Some of you may have not encountered these applications before, but again, you're already paying for a lot of these through your licensing. Potentially, you're also paying maybe a little bit extra for a third-party tool when you already have that capability. You're very, very close to that feature parity within the existing Microsoft applications. That can help cut down on costs, and it can also improve security and things like that, as everything we will show you today is inside of that nice secure service boundary. So as we get diving into it, again, we're trying not to make this a death by PowerPoint. And so we're just going to talk a little bit about each application. And then I'm going to show you what they look like and some basic features and functionalities throughout. Again, feel free to get involved in the chat itself is kind of for more just common conversations. And then there is a Q&A section at the top. And so we are on a little bit more of an advanced version of Microsoft Teams. Allows us to organize things a little bit better. But, you know, a good example of the chat might be where you're coming in from today. So happy to talk to you from Bristol, despite my potentially American accent there. But yeah, I want to know where everybody's dialing in from today. And again, appreciate everybody's time as we jump into this. So first up, we're going to talk about Microsoft Planner. This is essentially a project planning type of application that we're looking at. This allows you visual task management, Kanban style boards, if you've heard of that terminology before. You're able to assign tasks, set those due dates, track that progress, look at metrics, and you don't have to just do it with yourself. You can share it with your teammates. And so in the same way that we share a PowerPoint document or an Excel file to collaborate with other members of your team or even those externally, we could start planning a couple of these things in maybe a little bit more of a virtual space. If you're currently drawing out on a whiteboard or still using sticky notes, I do love sticky notes, and so I still use those as well. But again, maybe think about how this could apply to some of your processes internally and or one-off projects that you're going to be looking at. And we'll go ahead and show what this looks like here. So here we can see is just the kind of basic planner screen that we've got on this. And I'll maybe step out to my total plans that we have here. And you might have a little sidebar here that you can play with. And this is my plans. So this is a live environment that I'm showing you guys. And you can see there I've got a good check on which ones are specific and locked down secure to me, as well as ones that may have been shared by my organization. So that we can get information across a select group of people or potentially the entire organization as well. So there's a lot of flexibility. And Microsoft has done a really good job of helping us to get started with a little bit of inspiration. And so you'll find this new plan down here at the bottom. And you can even open up a whole portfolio, which is a little bit more complex than we'll get in here today, but lots of features. And so we'll click on our new plan. And you can see here, if you do want to start with that kind of net new and that greenfield deployment, you can start with the basic grid and truly customize it from the get-go. Or again, you can see a couple of really kind of basic templates that we would put in place. Employee onboarding is a great one. Project management, I think, is the best one to maybe focus in here a little bit. But you'll see here a lot of flexibility through the application. So we'll select our project management. Tells us a little bit about that. And just like every other Microsoft application, take advantage of some of these templates. We'll maybe call this Project Excellence for Excellence IT. I can add that to pin plans, and I can even add that to a group or a portfolio. So some flexibility if you need the projects inside of your projects and kind of sub-projects, if you will. So we'll create the plan here. And we can see it's given us a nice, good starting point for what this looks like. And kind of to orient a little bit what we're looking at, we're currently on the board style page. And so this is going to be what most of you are familiar with kind of a Kanban style board. But we can also take a look at these different tasks between the initiation, the planning, the execution, and kind of after there in the closing by switching it over to a grid view. And so we can see certain things in here. As far as when that should be started, particular individuals that might be assigned to this. Due dates in particular are very interesting just because it will automatically turn red once that due date is passed. help you get a little bit better. And you can see there are plenty of ways to customize this as far as where that progress is. So we can get this updated from a started, not started, or I just checked in with this team member and they're working on assigning the responsibilities there. And of course, priority is always in there. We've got the low, medium, high, and then the urgent kind of shout from the rooftops, take action now type things. And we can update those appropriately, as well as a kind of further level of and kind of customization with labels and colors, and even a little bit of these quick looks. And just showing you a few of the other templates and maybe what they look like. Did a little bit with this Project Falcon. And again, you can see it can come into there, similar to the one we just built. We've got just a couple of different things in there. This is kind of the simple plan template based off of the one there. And there's a great example of what it would look like to assign myself to the customized buckets. And it looks like I'm actually one day overdue with completing the customization of the buckets. And so I need to get in here, update my team members, and maybe if I'm managing this project, let Tom know that, hey, this is important. We need this done as soon as possible. There are also great ways to take a look at the schedule. And so we can look at a calendar view of this, very flexible to take a look at this over time. If we have any kind of backlog or up next tasks, again, everybody has a little bit different way that we approach kind of time and how we plan things. This calendar view has been very useful for me to get working with. And last but not least is our kind of charts as well. And again, kind of a limited plan that I've put together for my simple plan. But again, some of you are very analytical and numbers based. And so being able to take a look at total number of tasks, executions, how many things are urgent, reminder if everything's urgent, then nothing is. And so to use those appropriately. And again, traditional ways for Microsoft to add and share this to either a single individual or a whole team. And so I can potentially, as a business leader, create the plan, design the basic architecture, and share it with my entire finance team in a single group, rather than add 10 or 15 names manually, the kind of traditional way that we've done there. Just the last one here as we keep on time is to maybe take a look at a new employee onboarding. Potentially your business is involved in maybe seasonal workers, apprentices and things like that, and you kind of have that revolving door of folks coming in and out of the business. That process can be a little bit of a headache from time to time for your HR teams. Certainly some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is a great way to standardize that approach. You can come into here and you can clone certain projects if you would need to, and so we can templatize this out and get that going and customize for your business. But again, just giving you a little bit of a look at what this looks like, as opposed to, again, maybe a third-party tool that might have maybe one or two more bells and whistles that you're looking at, but certainly extra costs associated with it, and or potentially security risks and PII involved outside of that Microsoft system. Have to take that extra consideration when looking at those kind of things. And again, that is Microsoft Planner. And just a heads up as a note, that is different than Power Planner. And so if you are doing a little bit of research, either right now on a second screen or maybe after this webinar, Power Planner is kind of a third-party different entity. This is just simply Planner within Microsoft. All right, and we will go ahead and hop on to our next application, and this is going to be Microsoft Bookings. And so many of you out there set up and engage via phone calls. Certainly when I'm speaking with the Excellence IT team, Callum, what time are you free? Andy, when are you free? When are you both free to sync up and take a look at that? It can quite literally be a game of telephone in order to align schedules. Microsoft Bookings allows you to control that in a very granular way. And again, you probably already have access to this tool. And I did see that a few of you in the chat are currently using this. So there are some great customization options that I'd like to take you through and show you a little bit of a live look at what this looks like. So we will pull my kind of booking page back up again. So we can see there, welcome, Tom. I've got a couple of personal bookings there. You can see my organization has shared a few bookings with me, so I'm part of teams in which, as a specialist, I may be engaged for X, and my colleagues are engaged for Y, and the person on the other side is engaged for Z. But let's dive in and maybe create a little bit of a meeting and show you some of the customization. And again, this will align directly with your Outlook calendar. It works both on desktop and the web. And we'll automatically set up a Teams meeting with a Teams bridge. And so as far as quality of life and ease of use, one of the easier things to get started with that you simply may not have known is there, but you do have access to. So we'll create a new meeting type, and just to maybe keep our theme here, we'll call it the Excellence Call. So that's the name of the meeting that we're going to put together. We can put this into a certain category, and you can see there I've put a couple of custom categories over time in which I get involved in. Maybe this is an internal meeting for one of my colleagues to book my time so that we don't have to play back and forth on Teams or email to figure out our schedules. Or potentially, different ones there. So you can always add new color categories and kind of tags and things on there. Here is where you would do the description of the call. So I'm using kind of a purposely odd number there with 70, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But here again, we can add a physical location. So we can, take advantage of that. Again, whether or not you want that to know your location as a personal preference and a privacy consideration, or we can simply enable a Teams meeting, as many of us, attend a lot of our time there virtually. So we'll go ahead and forgo giving that just, maybe do just this time there and see if it's able to do the location. But adding that location in, here is the length of the meeting that'll be scheduled. So this will automatically, again, create that Teams bridge. We've got nice 15-minute increments, but of course, if we do need to customize that time, I can come into here and I can make that maybe 90 minutes if it's an hour and a half and we really need to get on a deep dive. And then this one is a very nice one as well. So whether or not this is going to be publicly available. Again, this is a link that can live inside of your email signature, for example. So if you're trying to generate new revenue, meet new clients, put yourself out there, maybe post something on LinkedIn, hey, book some time with me. They don't have to get in touch with you to see your schedule. You can make a public call type for maybe one type of engagement with yourself, and then have a private link as well, so that you send them this automatically and that only people you choose have access to your schedule. So there's some great flexibility into there. And you can even see a nice quality of life right there, whether that would be appended into your personal booking page with your email signature. Great little feature inside of that. And here we can see the schedule customization. And so this is maybe going into your Outlook and your email. And if you've not done a kind of that deep dive of fine tuning, this will take advantage of setting those office hours. Very important that we keep that work-life balance and that nobody books me for a 6 p.m. start time for a call. That would make me a little irritated. So I can make sure that the last booking will start at, say, 4 p.m. so that I'm wrapped up by 5, complete the admin, and I'm totally off the grid and onto my personal life by 5:30 at the end of my day. Can really help balance out that work-life balance a bit more. So we can see, again, customized availability or regular meeting hours. Potentially you're working overseas with somebody in a different time zone. You could create a potential booking just to make sure that they don't book you for that nice 3 a.m. call there if you're working with maybe some of our American counterparts. Underneath the advanced options, this has truly been something that has impacted me. We use this technology internally. Buffer time before meeting. Many of you out there probably today have had back-to-back meetings where you finish one thing and you either have to jump 5 minutes early or you're 5 minutes late to that back-to-back meeting. This can prevent that from happening by giving you a little bit of a buffer time, so that I'd say maybe 30 minutes. So the buffer plus 30 means that my excellent call will be 70 minutes, but I've got 30 minutes prepared so that nobody can kind of back to back, so that I can get my ducks in a row. I can get my materials together, my conversation, maybe use Copilot to help me prepare for the call with the individual, just to weave in a bit of AI and how I would use that. As well as that post-meeting breakdown. So one of the things that we tend to do is immediately get on to that next meeting. There's a fair bit of admin that can be involved with the conversation of whether this is going to be with a colleague or a client or things like that. Copilot, again, will take excellent notes for you, but if you don't have time to review that, store that in a CRM, pass that along to other relevant team members that may need to be engaged, or maybe assign tasks to other individuals, you can always hard block out that initial extra time. And so I might give myself an extra 15 minutes after an excellence call so that I can come in here and really know that I've got plenty of time to prepare, as well as that admin time. Now I can have what seems like back-to-back calls, but I don't have to be live on that call, if that makes sense. Last feature here as well was minimum lead time. How quickly can they book me for the call? It's currently 11:22. Can they book me for a half 11 meeting? I don't think anybody wins with a situation like that. So I might do an hour lead time, or maybe 1 day. That would be a little bit more common for what I do. Try to avoid same day bookings just so that you have time to prepare for the call. I have time to prepare for the call. And if we need to trade maybe emails to make sure that we're both kind of maximizing that time together, a minimum lead time of 1 day is something that we use internally, as well as the future. How far into the future can they book me? I'm not necessarily excited about getting booked for a call on December 23rd, just because I may very well be on holiday break. And so I have no idea what I'm doing even a few months from now. So how far into the future can they book you? And you can see there, maybe, if you're on a very short schedule there, or again, a customize, you can only book me in a 90 days, about 3 months lead time on a booking. Again, we, live in a very fast and ever-changing society here. You may not necessarily know your future schedule and holiday plans. And so something to certainly consider when putting together those lead times. Wrapping up the booking page here, just to stay on pace, you can put email reminders that are sent to the person. Reminder, you have a meeting with Tom tomorrow or in the next hour, just to make sure that that person does show up and attend. Your time is valuable, their time is valuable. We don't want to spam them with extra emails. And so if that is not needed, then certainly don't set it. And we can also send follow-up emails. And so potentially, if you're in maybe a customer service role, or you want to know how things are going, or you manage a team in which you'd like to know how their calls are going, you can add a follow-up email and customize that as well to put in any kind of NPS survey. That Net Promoter Score is a very popular score many of you are familiar with. You can maybe do a follow-up, tell us how we did on this call type of engagement. And again, fairly simplistic functionality of what you're looking at, but something that you may or may not know that you have access to. And or also there's that, third-party cost if you're engaging with some of those other booking softwares that are out there. This is all just housed within the Microsoft system. It's going to be an out-of-the-box. It's going to work and connect right into my Outlook from the get-go. I don't have to sign in or associate any accounts or anything going forward with that. Just make sure that you do save it after that customization. And you can see right there, I've got maybe a project sync. There's that excellence call we created. And functionally, I can come in here and find a really good template and then maybe duplicate that across XYZ categories for engagement processes, just to save you a little bit of time in that step process. Perfect. And yeah, potentially Callum and Andy, I know we might have 1 or 2 more polls in there, so I may just pause for a second just to see if we have any other polls that we'd like to launch, just to maybe keep everybody a bit more engaged here. No worries if not, we can continue on if we need to. Great. And so, yeah, this is something that pertains to a couple of the products that we're going to look at. And so on the 4 things there, we know that you get a lot of challenges in the day-to-day, but is there anything on this list that we've come up with that is particularly, kind of vexing to you on that day-to-day basis? And again, this is just general curiosity and seeing where we can maybe help out with that. Staying on top of personal to-do lists looks like it's taking an early lead. I see some, the tasks and projects as well in there. Information organizations, certainly so. The managing bookings and meetings there, good, very good engagement on that. Thank you again, very much appreciate you guys contributing today's polls here. Perfect. So it looks like probably a clear winner there with staying on top of the personal to-dos. And I think the next couple of applications we'll get into will show you several different ways to achieve this. And so there isn't a best fit way. You know your job better than I do. So again, maybe try to take a look at the tool in which you like using and in which the user interface for you is good and nice and clean. Just know that there might be several ways to tackle that to-do list as we get into some of these other applications here. But perfect. Thank you, Callum and Andy, for that. And yeah, I think very relevant. That was a great time for the poll because there is a whole application devoted to doing just that. It's called your to-do list. And this is a personal task management list And it's starting to make its way into other areas of the business and other areas of your Microsoft, thanks to Copilot and what things like call notes and facilitator can do that I'll speak on just here shortly. But these personal task management lists, these are very basic. We've all known what they look like on a piece of paper in the analog. Just know that there is a Microsoft version of this. And so what we can do here, and let me just make sure that this is good for sharing out my screen here. So we'll do find. Perfect. So I've got my importance and maybe my day. Great. So here is kind of my start to my actual to-do list in a live environment for what that's going to look like for me. And I can say, so I might want to make sure that I email those guys, just check in and see how the day went. So I'm going to add that to my list. And then I might need to sync up with Daisy to talk about next week's social event. And I might need to jump a little bit more into, Copilot Studios, just because I really got excited about Tom talking about agents. I want to teach myself a little bit more about it. And you can see here, very, very simple, not a whole lot of things. There was a nice little ding there. I'm not sure if you guys were able to hear that on the audio. I got a nice little bell task, but that allows me to, look at certain things. Again, a lot of you do this on a piece of paper. I've got papers in front of me still in kind of a hybrid transition from the analog to the digital. But there are really great ways in which your Outlook inbox, as well as your maybe managers and people you manage, can be assigned tasks that do live in this to-do. And so I just wanted to make sure to touch on some of those. You can see here as kind of some important things, the customized buckets. And so that is directly from the planner application that we look for. So there is cross-feature play, and some of these apps do play nicely together. That customized buckets comes directly from that simple plan demo that we were just looking at. Let me just pull that back up just to show you exactly where that was. If I go to my plans, there's the simple plan demo, and the task was assigned to me here, and then that appears in my to-do lists here. And so that's a great way for individuals to stay on top of things if they don't necessarily need to be running that entire planner board. Have the leadership be involved in that, and the individual contributors to the project simply need to worry about a nice, easy to-do list. There might also be a couple ones in here, and let me just make sure that these are okay to share on my side. Great, and so yeah, this is a kind of assigned to me. So things that have maybe been assigned to me, there's that customized buckets. I did get assigned a task during a Teams meeting, and so I'm kind of building some AI community, of which some of you are already a part of that, which I'm very thankful for, as well as looking at a little bit of this GCSE framework, great little framework to work on your prompting skills there and build some maybe video documentation about how that works for me. There's a great getting started section, so if you're not sure how to get going, quite literally it says getting started with a little hello there. And you can see as well customization across different backgrounds and flavors and so on. Won't spend too much more time on this just because I think this is fairly straightforward for most of you and seeing what that looks like. And then as well, I'll just double check, as I might see a question or two in the chat. So just double checking on those for me. Perfect. So great question there, Tobias, about Planner being automated. That is, I would imagine it could be through Power Automate. I don't want to give you an answer that I'm not 100% sure on, but I'm going to certainly follow up with that one. So let me just take a note, or probably, what I should do is kind of practice what I preach here a little bit. So there, now I've added that to my task, and I'll be sure to get that sorted by the end of the day to just show you quite literally how we use those things. Yeah, and Gary there, kind of use case for Planner to answer that question in there. Yeah, several different ways of doing it. Onboarding new employees might be one good aspect of that. Any individual kind of product development or software development, maybe even a product launch. And so if you're going to bring on a new service or a new type of offering to your clients and whatever that might be. Simply staging that in kind of the planning, the preparation, the logistics, and kind of that executing phase. And I really think that it would be good for anything that contains maybe multiple due dates and multiple deadlines. Not everybody's going to finish. If there's 10 or 20 people working on it, they're not all going to finish on the same day. But as we maybe break those up into little, maybe more manageable bits, we can put certain due dates on that and, chase people if we need to get things sorted so that the rest of the team can move forward on that. And as well, I invite everybody to, if you're using Planner and have used Planner, please throw that into the chat for any use cases that, if you feel okay sharing that in kind of a general sense. Don't include any actual details, but let us know what you're using Planner for as well, just to kind of help out everybody else on today's call. Perfect. And with that, we'll kind of continue on to a few more here as we get going through the time here. Want to make this valuable. So this is a really interesting one. I think this scored pretty low in our polling there. Let me just go back up and check where that initial poll was at. So Loop, we had one person in the chat. One person responded they use Loop. I might have been the one that actually put that in there. This was something I didn't even know existed about 2 or 3 months ago. This has now made its way into daily use for me. So this is a kind of a co-creation, tables, lists, and a flexible canvas, and really kind of talking to that's just really a lot of maybe buzzwords that don't really mean anything. I want to show you and share with you how this has personally helped me, and so I'm going to give you a little bit of insight into what my day looks like. And I, a part of a team on my organization with productivity, data, and AI is what we talk about. And we have a weekly sync. So that weekly sync is set up in Microsoft Teams. My manager there, Daisy, sets up our weekly meet. We meet on Monday mornings. And you can see here meeting notes in the series. And so every time we start the meeting, we turn on something called Facilitator. And so this is a function of Copilot. So if you do have Copilot, and you see that little down arrow on your meetings, and there's a toggle button for turn on Facilitator. Absolutely something to go ahead and enable. And what this does is in real time transfers the agenda. So we see the goal, catch up on recent projects, gather feedback. We go through things like good news, vendors, props and shout outs, any kind of stats and numbers from the business, and reminders, as part of our just weekly basis. I'm sure many of you have something very, very similar. As well as there's a poll in the chat about that Copilot usage. And so if you wouldn't mind, letting us know about your Copilot usage, would love to see some stats on what that looks like inside of there. And then you can see the post-meeting bookings that happened. And so I was very fortunate to take a holiday, got myself a little bit of a tan, took a nice warm European holiday and had an absolute great time. What came out of our meeting actually was that my colleague Dawn maybe needs to handle certain calls when I'm gone. And so that was a discussion that happened. And again, the benefit of Copilot is that I don't have to go back and watch an hour-long recording, or I don't even need to read the Copilot notes as much, because I can come into these meeting notes, which have a much better kind of clear thing going on. And then if I click this view recap, and I know my screen's a little bit small, there's that Teams icon. And so this will directly reach into the Copilot notes for that meeting, and let me know a little bit more if I really need to kind of deep dive into what they were talking about, or, if we enabled that full kind of transcription, really kind of see exactly what was said about things that were out there. There is Copilot functionality included into this. And so if you're a user of Copilot, you're very familiar with this button and this sidebar. Hopefully it's become, a little bit like home. But again, over time, we can do very simple tasks. And I imagine we'll see this expand as Copilot continues to improve. You can see that little preview button there means that's a little bit in beta mode, but certainly something I expect to come full general availability sooner rather than later. But I could look at files that I opened. How should I format product requirements? Because maybe it doesn't need to be in an Excel. Maybe I need to save it as a CSV or some information like that, but it's just not apparent to me. Copilot can help me stay on the screen, take a look at my meeting notes, and really kind of work in a good fashion. And, here, for example, I can start a new workspace. So if I did need to spin off a specific project, I can come into here. Looks like we can do some emojis and things like that. So we'll kind of keep it simple there if we want to put a bit of flavor. We haven't probably not going to probably talk too much about security today, but if you are enabled with things called sensitivity labels, then we can make this confidential and just scope this in only to the leadership team, the HR team, the finance team, whoever that might be. And then I can share this across a number of my colleagues. And so again, maybe just my department or members of that project team that I'm working with, adding content and kind of creating various bits inside of it. We'll maybe suggest some files there based off some AI creations. But again, very easy for me to come into here and quite literally Copilot can help me architect this from scratch. Again, you're not going to be a Copilot focused day here, but it really is great for inspiration. And I can reuse something that I've created. I can use one of these loop templates that might be in there. And so let's maybe click on those and see what they have. Oh, great. Yeah, a project briefing, or we've got a big decision to make as a team. So, let's make this team decision together. And you can see it's, kind of got a nice, a little bit more of aesthetically pleasing things in there. Or, let's go ahead and try to figure out why something is maybe just not quite working. These templates and some of this AI assistant can really help us get started with, okay, so how, are we going to go about certain things? It looks like maybe some healthcare related things in there, or kind of various bits for problem framing, or again, that Kanban board that I mentioned. And so if we're doing things that are maybe related to a project, that's what that might look like, for example. And again, this data is from Microsoft's demo company, Contoso, is where these templates look like there, as I recognize a couple of these users in there. Maybe you're a team leader as well and just want to set up a one-on-one meeting, set that up recurring. You've got your agenda, your notes, and we can assign action items to individuals for maybe certain things, or development, feedback, career progression, and so on. With that, want to be cognizant of time and make sure we get through everything. So again, that's Microsoft Loop. And if you are an active user of Copilot Notes at the moment with the license, please turn on that facilitator and let the Excellence IT team know how that goes, because I can tell you from a daily basis and a workflow, that has immediately impacted my workflow and been a good pickup for me to discover that very recently. We'll just briefly talk about OneNote. It didn't seem to have too much into there. This is about as of a direct translation of just an actual scratch pad into the real world. And so I just want to show you what that looks like, and maybe where Copilot can help clean up your existing OneNotes. I had taken a lot of random notes, and again, this is a very formatable. I can type different notes there and a whole different section. And so formatting can be a little bit scary sometimes in here. So maybe what I do is, if I have my sales and finance sync, and these are the notes that I took, I just kind of very quickly took those down because I forgot to turn on the Copilot notes like I should have. What I can do for that is, I'll go ahead and delete this one here, is I can select this box, hit my Copilot button there, and I can actually create a task list out of this. And so this is where Copilot can come into tandem with your OneNote if you are a user of this, or maybe transition a little bit from the paper into the digital here. And you can see that I've now got a really nice little to-do list that's been created. And if you're one of those people that likes that nice click and the checkbox exercise, a great way to go ahead and put that into place. As well as there's a lot of information into that, and I really don't have time, and the way that my brain works, I would prefer to summarize that. You can come into some of your existing workflows. Again, you can start new with OneNote if you've never used it, or if it's maybe a little bit, unmanaged, a little bit overgrown with the notes being here and there. Come into here and add a nice summary to it. And again, Copilot does a great job with the summary. The only other things that I'll mention is that, typing out massive amounts of notes can be a little bit tough sometimes, but if you do want to take advantage of your microphone, you can transcribe, record audio, and even just do live dictation to get that in there. And we are seeing these technologies rapidly evolve with the accuracy as far as using UK English or proper English that time around, as well as foreign languages. And so if you are working internationally with non-English speakers, a lot of these non-English speaking languages are working very, very well in Copilot. Please check those out if you're not familiar with them. Perfect. So that is OneNote. And with that, in the last couple of minutes, I did want to yeah, launch one more poll and talk just a little bit about agents before we maybe bring Andy back on, just to kind of wrap up, and we'll maybe see if there's any other questions in the chat there, which I can take a look at here if you guys help us out with just I think that might be our last poll. If not, we might have just one more. Perfect. Great. And yeah, these responses there. And again, I hope you guys are looking at this and maybe applying, rough estimates to, this is a picture of maybe how your organization uses these applications as well. And yeah, hopefully we're on the mark here a little bit with today's content. You didn't even know they existed until we told you they did. And you just simply need to find them in kind of your myapps.microsoft in the Microsoft store. Also, that time to learn can be very, very tricky. I'd sound like maybe a bit of a broken record here. Copilot can help you with the training of those things. Even the free version of the web-based Copilot, you can go in and say, tell me more about using Microsoft Loop because I have XYZ meetings, for example. Might be a great one on there. Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Callum, for the note there. Really, really good responses. I think that, hopefully you guys see a little bit of value with some of those core applications. Yeah, many of you discovering them, and then that time not to learn. I don't have time to go watch 4 hours of YouTube videos or dive into documentation, but maybe have Copilot create a 30-minute quick onboarding for Loop or OneNote or Planner. Again, in there, I think it was Gary that asked that question. Ask Copilot for examples of Planner. What are real-world examples that Planner are being done for? Lots of things that we're just right now in the midst of a kind of a whole transformation here. We went from the on-premise into the cloud, and now we're going from the cloud into this agentic AI and multi-agent systems and kind of all these buzzwords that are going on. If you're a current Copilot user, or maybe you're thinking about getting into Copilot, I want to show you two things that have come out very recently that I think have mass application across pretty much everybody on today's call. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up just Copilot. And so just to show many of you that maybe aren't familiar where we're at, I'm on the web application. If I were to click on the work version of Copilot, that would point that a little bit more into my company, my documentation. But over here on the side, you may have started kind of playing around with some of these things called agents. And again, maybe you're only familiar with something like a chat GPT. You've seen that there's the specialized GPTs, and there's ones that they're really good at creating pictures of race cars, or they're really good at recipes and cooking without the whole life story. They just give you the ingredients and let you get to baking and cooking. Kind of a specialized bespoke style AI, in addition to kind of this larger generalistic generative AI experience. The two that I would point out to you and show you exactly where they are is all you need to do is come into this All Agents button on the left side. And you can see this is the agent store. And you may have been familiar with some of these little templates that have been around for a couple of months. But these two have recently gone general availability. And I highly advise that if you sit in a little bit more of an analytical position, you get going with the analyst. And if you work with any of your customers or clients, or driving new business, or experimenting with growth, or trying to figure out anything research related, that you really take a look at this researcher agent, both kind of custom built for a specific task. So I do want to put up front on this, both of these agents take a little bit over 10 minutes to complete their action. This isn't going to be as standard as our back and forth conversations with Copilot and GPT that we've gotten used to, that instant response. We want our answers now. As soon as I press enter, I want that processing and response within seconds. I will confirm these take about 10 minutes, but I think what I'm about to show you is worth that kind of forced coffee break, or the forced maybe park it on your second monitor and maybe go back to your emails and Teams for a little bit. The first one I'm going to show you is the analyst one. So I'm going to scroll to the top here, and I'm going to show you the document that I used for this. And so this is a publicly available document from the US space program at NASA on exoplanets. Just to kind of be a little nerdy here and share with you one of my passions in outer space and astronomy. This is 5,800 lines, 78 columns of scientific data. This is about as complex of a data set as you can get, whether you have financial numbers, sales numbers, customer service numbers. Clearly too big for any single human mind to grasp and do things with. And again, if you're interested in what Copilot can do on that Excel sheet, reach out to us and we can take you through that in a one-to-one capacity. What I've done with this analyst agent here is I've uploaded that document and I said, create a visualization of the data and find outliers in the data and provide logical guesses as to why they're there. And again, you're starting to see things that maybe some of us start getting apprehensive about. This is Python. Quite literally, in order to understand this data set, I would need to be a data scientist. That can be expensive. That can be very time consuming to learn. You can see that it went through and it took about 10 or 11 minutes to process this sheet. Kind of scroll down and show you what it did and how it maybe ran into errors. And it's looking at the data structure. I didn't even format it or turn it into tables like I should have. And I'll just kind of cut to the bottom here, but you can see it did a lot of work and a lot of thinking for me that, again, is very expensive or very time consuming. But look at what it produced at the visualizations. And so now I've got quite literally something worthy of a PhD or at least a graduate student in astronomy putting together a radius versus mass of these exoplanets and kind of the correlating factors there, or maybe the years of discovery. So it looks like that, in between 2013 and 2016 was a kind of a bonanza of discovery for us, these exoplanets, and that, in a good way, we're trending towards finding more and more of these out there beyond the solar system. And okay, there's the discovery methods. And so which of our detection types is working really, really well? Again, looking at 6,000 rows and 78 columns, I just have to guess and take a best guess. Here, I can tell you that it's the transit method is overwhelmingly more effective. And then we can find some outliers in the data. So again, if you've got maybe some odd things into there, maybe just an extra spike or two in some of the things you're doing in Excel and charting, ask Copilot to come in and ask this analyst for a little bit of help. And it's even offering to do a deeper statistical analysis of the outliers themselves, or help me clean up the data a little bit. And Andy, Callum, I know I'm getting close on time, but I will finish out with the researcher agent. And I do want to do a side-by-side comparison of what that looks like. So I'm just going to go back to my Copilot homepage. We're going to give a very basic prompt here. So I went to the Victoria and Albert Museum in London for the first time a couple weeks ago. We got some big tapestries here with some bears on them, and I got really excited about bears in the UK. Unfortunately, discovered they were extinct, and so I wanted to know a little bit about what would it be like to bring those back in. And so, tell me about reintroducing bears to the UK. We can see there that Copilot's going to give me a fairly standard response. Give me a couple of citations, maybe just 3 sources. It did a good job of giving me a simple answer. What happens if I ask that exact same question to the researcher agent? And so again, if you're doing research about anything into it, this is the exact same prompt. Hopefully it's going to load up for me here. You can see, I just did this back in early May. Tell me about the reintroduction of bears. It quite literally said, I need to know more because I know so much about this subject. I need you to scope it in. And I said, okay, just tell me a little bit about the historical context. And you can see on the right side here how much information it gave me. Again, it took about 10 minutes to process this. But this is kind of Microsoft really making good on the promise of that PhD level candidate student going out and being a deep researcher for you to find information about that. And I'm just astonished at what it came back with this. And whether you're researching clients or maybe yourself, go in and throw your own company into this and see what the World Wide Web comes back with. And you can see there, it gives me a nice logical conclusion that pulls it all together, as well as my final thing here showing you it's gone and found a lot more sources. This is a much deeper dive and a much deeper analysis than kind of that standard traditional Copilot search and how it goes about that. So again, the researcher and the analyst agent, highly advised that you go into those. And as a final one here, Andy, before I turn it back over and we answer some questions and answers, is just if you want to start experimenting with customizing it, this create agent here is going to continue to evolve. And so maybe you've just gained access to Copilot for the first time and you want to start building some of these agents. Maybe you do something like an employee handbook agent so that everybody in your company can just go into the Copilot agent and ask questions about process and uniform and acceptable use policy and personal devices and whatever that might be. And on the right side is what that agent's going to look like. And so I want to call it the Employee Handbook Assistant. And this requires no coding at all. So you don't need to know the script or code. You can simply have a conversation with the agent, and you can see the right side is going to update that. What tasks or information should it do? Help my users understand my business processes and expectations. You can give it the tone of voice that you'd like it to perform, and you can even input sources. And so I could reference a certain SharePoint site if I've got that company documentation stored, or I could point it at an available site. So I could point it at, I know that's probably not the right site, but I do have a publicly available site there where I can say, yep, go to Microsoft.com for this answer. Do you have any more modifications? And different ways that it's going to curate that. Again, agent creation really gaining steam in this. And so with that, you've probably heard enough about Copilot agents on this side. And so we'll maybe hop over to a few minutes of questions and answers here. And Andy, want to bring you back on as well. So any of these applications jump out? And yeah, tell me about it.
Tom, thank you very much. I appreciate there was so much covered there, Tom. That was really, really good. I think one of those last polls was a really good insight for me, whereby a lot of you weren't sure that these tools were available in 365 or hadn't actually looked at them before. So I think that's been really helpful for us gaining information. And obviously, we appreciate there's too much to cover in one session, so that we can't do everything. And we've looked at some of the questions. Callum and I were trying to answer a lot of the questions as we were going through as well. And there's some interesting slants on some of the tools and the questions that were being answered. I think, Toby, you were asking at the end about not sure which tool to actually use for some things. So if you've got a particular problem, I know you're probably going to think, oh, okay, it's back to AI, but asking Copilot, just on Tom's theme there, asking Copilot, saying, look, I've got this particular problem. Is there a Microsoft tool that can help me with this? And you're right, not all of the information is absolutely 100% correct, but you've still got to analyze it as a human at the end of the day and make a call. But obviously AI is there to try and help you with these things. I'm going to hand you over to Callum just to close things off. But again, thanks very much, Tom, and I hope everybody's found that really useful as an insight to some of these tools.
Hello. If you have any questions, now is the time to put them in the Q&A, please. We have a few more minutes where we'll be taking questions, but while that happens, I've just put in the final poll of the day just to know if you are interested in any more of the 365 tools, or maybe you want us to go further into maybe a particular tool or two. All of this gives us fantastic ideas on how we can shape, how we can get the best value for yourselves, really. So first of all, I'd also like to say a thank you to Tom. Tom's a fantastic partner of Excellence IT, and they once again helping us get as much value as we possibly can over to yourselves. So thank you very much, Tom.
Of course, yeah, anytime. And again, think of me like an extension of your guys' team. And so if any of you want me to come in and maybe give a little bit of a deeper dive into Copilot and things like that, we've got the contact information for Excellence right on the screen there. Reach out to Callum or Andy, and Andy, if you have anything as well. But happy to hop on and do a one-on-one call with kind of the rest of the users of your business there, if you'd like me to maybe focus a little bit more on kind of your business and what you guys do and your use cases for any of these technologies.
Yeah, come back to us on the usual contact methods on the website, email addresses. Everybody's got our info at Excellence IT email address, and we'll be happy to help. So thanks for everyone for attending. We're going to close out the meeting now, but appreciate all of the responses, all of the interaction as well. That's great. Thanks again, all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.